sorrow, obsession, and deep restlessness are the emotions that washed over me after researching and learning about more than 100 Black public figures connected to hidden tragedies and the price paid for the desire to hold on to youth through the scalpel. Hello everyone, we are our Memory Vault. And this is the video 21 Black celebrities who had tragic endings after cosmetic surgery. This significantly impacts how we view the cruel pressures of physical appearance in the entertainment industry, and it might just leave you stunned. This video is perfect to play while you are resting, enjoying a meal with your family, or doing chores around the house. All the information in this video has been carefully researched and gathered from multiple sources. If there are any oversights, please leave a comment below to help our channel continue to grow. Please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and ring the notification bell to receive updates on our latest videos. Now let us step right into the stories of our first figures. Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was not just a legend. He was an ideology, a man who reshaped the entire foundation of global music and dance. With the monumental album Thriller, he stood at a peak no other artist had ever touched. Yet behind the masterful dance moves and radiant smiles on stage was a soul carrying bleeding wounds from childhood. The massive pressure from a father's harsh judgment, resonating with the invisible but sharp standards of the media, inadvertently pushed him into an inescapable vortex of physical insecurity. From a psychological perspective, Michael's cosmetic interventions were not merely a need for beautification. They were the silent cries for help of a person wanting to reject the past, wanting to run away from the very reflection he once hated. Starting with minor changes after an onstage accident, he gradually fell into a maze of endless surgeries. The transformation in his appearance brought severe health consequences, forcing him to turn to sedatives as his only crutch to find sleep in long, lonely nights. I feel an immense sorrow looking back at his final days. His sudden passing just before his comeback tour was not only a massive loss for music, but also a tear-filled wake-up call about the pressure of public opinion. Michael Jackson spent his entire life soothing and healing the world with music, but was powerless to heal his own soul. He yearned for a flawless perfection, only for that very yearning to ultimately become the cage that imprisoned the great life of a king. Lil' Kim. In the 90s, Lil' Kim was a true storm. She broke all barriers, redefining the style and status of women in the male-dominated world of hip-hop. Possessing sharp beauty, a strong personality, and innate talent, she was an inspiration to millions of Black women. However, behind that edgy exterior and those powerful rap tracks was a woman harboring much pain from toxic relationships. The deep emotional trauma from a former lover's derogatory remarks planted a seed of extreme insecurity in her mind. When analyzing Lil' Kim's story, we clearly see a heartbreaking reality. Sometimes those who appear the strongest are the ones carrying the most fragile hearts. Her turning to plastic surgery was not to reinvent herself, but a desperate effort to erase the sad memories etched onto her face. From initial minor adjustments, she gradually got caught in a loop of altering her features and skin tone, inadvertently stripping away the original beauty that once made her very brand. To the fans who admired Lil' Kim in the early days, her transformation brings an unceasing sense of regret. It reflects a cruel hidden corner of society. When a woman is not loved properly, she can very easily lose her core value. Lil' Kim now lives a more reclusive life, carrying irreversible after effects. Her journey is a sad testament to the fact that the scalpel can change the outer shell, but can never heal the scars etched deep within the soul. Lil' Kim's pain is only the beginning of the crueler hidden corners ahead. Right up next, let's uncover the tragedy of a powerful television queen who lost everything just because of the desire to hold on to her halo. Wendy Williams. Wendy Williams is an empire in the American television industry. With her sharp, blunt hosting style and unafraid to clash attitude, she built the image of an iron-willed woman, always mastering every game. Audiences loved her for her authenticity and explosive energy on the airwaves. However, behind that chair of power was a silent and incredibly fierce battle with insecurities about her appearance. The television industry is a ruthless scrutinizing machine, where every wrinkle, every change brought by age can become a reason for elimination. The downward slide of Wendy Williams started from the invisible pressures to maintain a perfect image before millions of probing eyes every day. She resorted to continuous cosmetic interventions, like a life preserver to hold on to her youth. I believe that this is the common tragedy of those who mistakenly carry too great an expectation from the public on their shoulders. When the body can no longer withstand the external impacts, it begins to speak up. The silently accumulating complications eroded not only her physical health, but also her mental clarity. The event of her show being canceled and recent diagnoses of her declining cognitive health were a massive shock. From a woman who breathed fire, she now has to face the silence of a life with illness. Wendy Williams's story brings a profoundly humane lesson. No matter how much power you have, natural health remains your most precious asset. Bracing oneself against the laws of nature only brings deep trauma, leaving an unending sense of remorse for those who once admired her. Vivica A. Fox. Mentioning Vivica A. Fox is mentioning a brilliant and fiery beauty of the 90s Hollywood screen. She once shone brightly in blockbusters like Independence Day, affirming her status as a talented and alluring actress. However, the cinematic capital always carries a cruel rule of elimination. It worships youth and coldly turns its back on actresses, beginning to step into their twilight years. Facing the threat of being forgotten, Vivica made a highly sorrowful choice, turning to plastic surgery to freeze time, hoping to hold on to the opportunities that were gradually slipping away. From a sociological perspective, Vivica's compromise is the consequence of an entertainment industry full of injustice toward women. When wrinkles are viewed as flaws, rather than the depth of experience, the artist is forced to race in a battle with no chance of winning. Consecutive interventions took away the naturalness on her face, freezing the vivid expressions that were the most powerful weapons of an actor. As a result, directors became increasingly hesitant, and roles with psychological depth gradually drifted away from her. Later, in moments of bitter confession, Vivica admitted she went too far because of the fear of elimination. Her journey makes cinema-loving audiences inevitably feel a pang of sadness. It shows the cruelty of the halo where the artist is forced to trade their authenticity to satisfy superficial standards. Vivica A. Fox remains a respected icon, but her story will always be a melancholic low note about the pressure of youth in the hustle and bustle of art. LaToya Jackson. As a member of the illustrious Jackson family, LaToya Jackson carries innate artistic blood within her. She once had brilliant periods in her singing and modeling career with a sweet and captivating beauty. Yet being born into an overly famous family was both a privilege and a curse. A childhood strictly controlled by her father, coupled with a dark marriage to an emotionally abusive ex-husband, left LaToya always living in a defensive state and lacking self-esteem about who she was. Her stepping onto the path of cosmetic alteration was not entirely out of free will. Analyzed more deeply, it was the reflection of a living environment lacking tolerance where beauty standards were distorted. Like her great younger brother, LaToya tried to change her facial features with the subconscious hope that improving her appearance would help her escape psychological traumas and find autonomy. But reality is incredibly harsh. The interventions did not bring peace, but only created more barriers that made her increasingly withdrawn and insecure. In her later years, LaToya chose to step back away from the noise of the media. She bravely admitted her past mistakes and expressed regret over impulsive decisions. For older audiences, LaToya's life evokes deep empathy for the suffering of women not allowed to be themselves. Her tragedy reminds us that every physical change is meaningless if the soul is not healed and liberated from the pains of the past. The tragedy of the Jackson family leaves us speechless, but the departures that follow are the truly terrifying obsessions. Don't take your eyes off the screen, because right up next is the story of a musical treasure who had to trade her precious voice for the illusion of beauty. Mary Wells. Mary Wells was one of the brightest gems of the legendary Motown record label. Her sweet, life-filled voice in the song My Guy once captivated millions of hearts worldwide in the 60s. With mature beauty and a radiant aura, Mary conquered every peak of contemporary music. Yet as she entered middle age in the 80s, she had to face a cruel reality. The entertainment industry began turning its back on older women. The stagnation in her career, resonating with the breakdown of her marriage, sowed an extreme insecurity about her appearance in the singer's heart, especially regarding her natural nose, which she believed no longer fit current tastes. The decision to undergo cosmetic intervention to reclaim her youth for Mary Wells contains an ultimate sorrow. Analyzed through the lens of fateful irony, the desire to return to the stage inadvertently forever robbed her of the chance to raise her voice. The rejection reactions after the intervention silently destroyed her vocal cords, the most priceless asset of an artist. I assess that Mary's tragedy was not just medical bad luck. It is an indictment of the terrifying pressure of a society that only worships youthful beauty. She was pushed into a position of having to race against time, only to lose the very thing that made her name. In the final years of her life, Mary Wells had to live in tear-soaked silence, as she was unable to communicate normally before passing away in 1992 at the age of 49. To the older audiences who grew up with her melodies, this loss leaves an unceasing remorse. She traded her very life just to look more beautiful in the eyes of the public. Though belated, her induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame after her passing is a comfort, but also an aching low note, reminding us of the far too expensive price of appearance pressures in showbiz. Nene Leakes. Nene Leakes entered the entertainment world like a breath of fresh air, brilliant and full of pride. Becoming a phenomenon on the reality TV show Real Housewives of Atlanta, she attracted audiences with the highly original beauty of a Black woman. Full-figured, energetic, and incredibly confident. It was that distinctiveness and strong personality that brought her to the status of an A-list star. However, the halo of reality television came with sharp knives from public opinion. Millions of scrutinizing eyes and bitter judgments about the natural contours of her body gradually eroded her sturdiest wall of confidence. Let us analyze the toxicity of judging a person by their outward appearance. From someone who always took pride in her roots, Nene began to compromise with society's cookie-cutter beauty standards. Her continuous interventions to narrow her nose and completely alter her body's curves did not bring the peace she expected. On the contrary, it created a wave of fierce backlash from her own community as they felt she was rejecting her origins to chase an alien beauty. I believe that Nene's greatest suffering did not lie in physical pain, but in the feeling of being lost, standing at a crossroads, trying to please the world but losing herself. Mental breakdown, along with the tragedy of losing her loving husband, caused Nene to gradually retreat behind the stage lights. For audiences who once admired her strength, this is a deeply cautionary tale. It exposes an unfair rule. Public opinion can create pressures forcing you to change, but when you change, they are the ones who turn their backs and judge you the harshest. Nene Leakes' journey reminds us that building self-worth based on the praises and criticisms of the world is an incredibly cruel and risky gamble. Donda West. The story of Dr. Donda West, a prestigious educator and the biological mother of rap superstar Kanye West, carries a completely different and profoundly aching tone. Unlike artists yearning to maintain their careers, Dr. Donda was a mother who always stepped back dedicatedly, supporting her son to reach the peak of glory. However, when the son becomes a global phenomenon, the loved ones around him are also inadvertently swept into the media vortex. At the age of 58, the desire to possess a more perfect, radiant appearance, to confidently walk beside her famous son, urged her to seek out body-enhancing interventions. Through the lens of family psychology, Dr. Donda's decision reflects an invisible but extremely heavy pressure of the so-called celebrity demeanor. It deeply pains me to realize that even an intellectual, independent, and respectable woman like her could not escape physical insecurities when standing before the camera. Her sudden passing just one day after cosmetic intervention created a massive shockwave. Although this event prompted the creation of a law bearing her name to tighten medical regulations, it forever leaves an unfillable void in the hearts of those left behind. The greatest tragedy was the mental collapse of Kanye West. he permanently lost the most solid anchor of his life. For audiences who are parents, the passing of Donda West brings a profound reflection on the limits of chasing external standards. She spent her whole life dedicating herself to education and family, but had to stop unjustly just because of an effort to reinvent herself. Her absence is a sorrowful reminder. No artificial beauty is worth the peaceful presence of the people we love. K. Michelle. K. Michelle is an R&B singer, possessing a powerful and deeply emotional voice. In the 2000s, she not only made her mark with music, but also attracted attention with an incredibly fiery hourglass figure. However, in a hip-hop industry that always worshipped exaggerated physiques, K. Michelle fell into an extremely dangerous trap. Desiring to achieve quick results without strict medical supervision, she turned to gluteal enhancement methods from unlicensed facilities. This was an impulsive decision of youth that she had to spend the rest of her life atoning for with flesh-tearing pain. Let us analyze the recklessness driven by appearance pressure. Chasing an unrealistic beauty pushed K. Michelle to the brink of life and death. I believe that the toxic standard system of the entertainment world deceived women, making them believe their value lay in physical measurements rather than talent. When horrific complications began devastating her body, she stunningly realized she had just gambled her life for an illusion. Going through countless times, snatching her life back from the hands of death, to remove toxic substances from her body. K. Michelle was left bearing scars that will never fade. Yet what makes audiences admire K. Michelle the most is her bravery in facing the truth. Instead of hiding, she used her own ultimate pain to turn it into a powerful message, warning young girls blindly chasing cheap cosmetic beauty. K. Michelle's awakening carries a massive humane value. Although her figure is no longer perfect as before, she now shines brilliantly with courage and authenticity. She is living proof that a person can stumble due to superficial temptations, but it is the awakening and effort to mend mistakes that make true value. Marlena Shaw. Marlena Shaw was one of the outstanding monuments of jazz and soul music. Her classic song, California Soul, carries a fierce, free, and liberated vitality. For jazz music, the soul of the performances does not only lie in the voice, but also in the subtle expressions on the artist's face, a frown, a half smile, or a drifting gaze. However, as twilight years came knocking, the fear of no longer maintaining her form before the audience urged Marlena to turn to skin-tightening procedures and fillers to hold on to youthfulness. And that was exactly when the silent tragedy began. Through the lens of analyzing the irony of art, what Marlena had to endure carries a profound sorrow. The abuse of cosmetic techniques inadvertently froze her entire facial muscles, stripping her of the ability to express the most delicate emotional nuances. I assess that for a true artist, there is no punishment crueler than losing the soul connection with the audience. Wrinkles, which inherently are proof of a life rich in experience, were now forcibly erased, leaving a lifeless face. The feeling of helplessness when unable to perform fully pushed her into a state of deep depression. The passing of Marlena Shaw in early 2024, at the age of 81, closed an illustrious career that was also full of melancholic low notes in its final stretch. For music-loving audiences, her story evokes deep reflection on the laws of life and death and aging. We cannot make time stand still, and neither can the artist. Not accepting aging naturally robbed a legend of her peaceful final years. Marlena Shaw left behind immortal musical legacies, but her life is also a poignant instruction on learning to love and cherish the beauty of maturing through the years. Sarah Dash. Sarah Dash was an indispensable piece of the legendary girl group LaBelle, who helped create the immortal anthem Lady Marmalade in the 70s. Her image was always associated with explosion allure and abundant energy on stage. However, the music industry is an incredibly cruel time machine, always demanding the artist to maintain an eternally youthful appearance. When entering her late 70s and preparing for a new musical project, Sarah had to face a massive psychological pressure. How to maintain the fiery image of the past in the eyes of the public when the law of aging had come knocking. Let us analyze the illusion about the limits of medicine. A woman at the age of 76 deciding to undergo complex body-enhancing interventions is not vanity. It is proof of a society constantly sowing fear about aging. I am deeply saddened to assess that Sarah was swept into the blind belief that the scalpel could help her conquer time. The complication that occurred just days after she underwent the cosmetic procedure took the life of a monument, leaving the music world in utter shock. The passing of Sarah Dash in 2021 is a painful indictment of the abuse of cosmetic methods at an advanced age. To the audiences who were once captivated by her voice, this event brings a lingering remorse. It forces the cosmetic industry to issue sterner warnings about the physical endurance of the elderly. Sarah Dash dedicated her whole life to music, but at the final moment, she became a victim of a system that always rejects the mature, rich beauty of the twilight years of life. Wanda Young. Wanda Young was once the soul of the group, the Marvelettes, who ignited a fever with the hit, "Please Mr. Postman." Possessing an incredibly mesmerizing, sweet voice, she once stood at the peak of fame with Motown Records. Yet as the brilliant years passed and the stage lights gradually faded, Wanda had to face a vast emptiness in her soul. The feeling of floundering when the halo faded, resonating with a deep insecurity about the natural features on her face that she had always inherently hidden, urged her to seek out plastic surgery in her middle age. She hoped that a new appearance would be the key to helping her reopen the door to return to art. Through the lens of analyzing double trauma, Wanda's decision to undergo facial cosmetic intervention inadvertently became the sentence that stripped away her most precious things, her breath and her singing voice. The prolonged medical consequences that followed left deep damage inside her respiratory tract, making breathing a basic survival instinct, an incredibly arduous battle every single day. I believe that Wanda's tragedy is the ultimate irony of fate. The method she believed would bring confidence turned into a shackle, imprisoning her in physical pain and completely extinguishing the dream of returning to the stage. For nearly the last 2 decades of her life, Wanda had to live with smoldering after effects before passing away in 2021 due to compounded health risks. For loyal fans, her story leaves a tear-filled silence. An artist who once brought joy to millions had to spend her twilight years struggling and in hardship. The life of Wanda Young is an aching reminder. Trying to fix external flaws sometimes inadvertently breaks the most precious gifts that nature has bestowed from the inside. Lil Cease, the hip-hop Marie. Hip-hop world has always been known for its edgy exterior power and incredibly strict standards of masculinity. Lil Cease, a core member of the group, Junior Mafia, and a close brother to the legend, the notorious B.I.G., seemingly could not escape that invisible pressure either. After the tragic passing of his soulmate, Lil Cease fell into a deep pit of depression and disorientation. The feeling of instability in his career, along with intense insecurity about his round face, pushed the male rapper into a fatal wrong decision. Seeking out cosmetic filler injection procedures of unknown origin to create a sharper, more angular look. Let us analyze the toxicity of beauty standards creeping into the minds of men. We often mistakenly believe that only women are victims of appearance pressure, but Lil Cease's story proves the opposite. I assess that his act of seeking underground cosmetic methods was the consequence of despair, wanting to use physical change to hide the brokenness inside his soul. Sadly, those unsafe impurities reacted violently, completely deforming his natural features and seriously affecting even his voice, the only money-making tool of a rap artist. Lil Cease's avoidance of the media and reclusive living in recent years is an incredibly bitter consequence. He once bravely spoke up to admit his mistake and blamed himself for letting insecurity destroy his appearance. For the audience, this is a profoundly cautionary tale, regardless of gender. It exposes a truth. Even the men who appear the strongest in a highly competitive hip-hop world can easily be suffocated by superficial beauty standards leading to wrong steps that destroy an entire future. Countess Vaughn. Countess Vaughn was once a radiant and life-filled face on American television, leaving a deep mark through hit sitcoms. With a full-figured beauty and a bright smile, she brought positive energy to millions of viewers. However, the sacred calling of motherhood inadvertently became the origin of an incredibly fierce psychological tragedy. After giving birth, a woman's body naturally changes, but social media and the press never have enough tolerance for that. The body-shaming remarks and malicious comments about her figure dealt fatal psychological blows, shattering the actress's confidence. Through the lens of analyzing verbal violence, Countess Vaughn is a typical victim of a society lacking empathy. To silence the criticisms and quickly regain her pre-pregnancy figure, to protect her career, she gambled her life on body contouring interventions. I am deeply pained to realize that the desire to be loved by the public again pushed her into a horrific medical nightmare. The body's brutal rejection reactions left permanent physical damage on her skin, stripping her of the privilege to wear her favorite outfits and bringing lingering physical pain. However, Countess Vaughn's strength shone brilliantly from those very traumas. Instead of hiding, she bravely stepped onto television, shedding the most genuine tears to expose her indelible scars. Her action was a powerful manifesto against body shaming directed at postpartum women. To the audiences who are mothers, Countess Vaughn's story is a priceless, empathetic embrace. It reminds us that no societal standard has the right to trample on the sacred beauty of sacrifice, and no one should have to trade their health just to fit into the judgmental gaze of the world. Tonto Dike. Tonto Dike is one of the most powerful and alluring superstars of Nollywood Nigerian cinema. She possesses a brilliant career and always appears with a top-tier aura. However, behind that perfect shell is a heart torn apart by the very man she once called husband. The cruel, derogatory remarks about her postpartum body from her life partner became a sharp knife, cutting away all her pride. The feeling of being hurt and betrayed urged Tonto to seek out major body overhaul methods, not just to look more beautiful, but deep down she wanted to prove her worth against those venomous criticisms. Let us analyze the tragedy of borrowing confidence. Using the scalpel to heal a psychological wound is an incredibly dangerous double-edged sword. I assess that Tonto stepped into the operating room not out of self-love but driven by emotional pain. The serious life-threatening complications and chronic pain she had to bear after a series of interventions was a far too expensive price. Trying to create a perfect physique could not help her erase the memory of emotional abuse. It only created more physical burdens that made her life a long string of days battling illness. But the most miraculous thing in Tonto Dike's story is her proud awakening. After tears of remorse on television admitting to having lost a part of my soul to artificial beauty, she brushed off the mud and stood up to become a powerful social activist. She uses her own story of blood and tears to warn thousands of African women who are blindly chasing plastic surgery. For you, the audience, Tonto's journey is a costly lesson about self-worth. She proves that a woman's true strength does not lie in her vital measurements, but in the courage to dare to stand up from mistakes and learn to cherish her own original self. Stella Obasanjo. Stella Obasanjo was not an entertainment star. She was the first lady of the most populous nation in Africa, Nigeria. In the eyes of the public, she was a symbol of authority, compassion, and perfection. However, behind that dignity was a massive, invisible pressure. When standing at the highest position, representing the face of an entire nation, a woman is not allowed to show signs of aging or fatigue. Approaching the age of 60, the desire to maintain a radiant appearance, to walk beside the country's leader, urged her to make a fateful decision, quietly traveling to Europe alone to undergo interventions to regain her youthful figure. Let us analyze the illusion of power and safety. We often mistakenly believe that wealth and supreme status can buy the most perfect medical services, eliminating all risks. Yet human life is incredibly fragile. Negligence and irreversible medical errors at the foreign clinic pushed the First Lady into a sudden severe illness. I am deeply saddened imagining her final hours. A powerful woman always surrounded by thousands of people had to face the boundary between life and death completely alone in a cold foreign land, without a single relative by her side. The passing of Stella Obasanjo in 2005 was not only a family tragedy, but it became a pain on a national scale, shaking global public opinion. This tragic event tore away the veil covering the deadly risks of the medical tourism trend. For the audience, this is an incredibly profound philosophical lesson. Even if you possess an entire empire or overwhelming power, you still cannot fight against the impermanent laws of the Creator. Her sacrifice is a painful low note reminding us of the far too expensive price of the pressure for perfection among the elite. Hazel E. Hazel E. is a familiar face on American reality television, a place where drama, ostentation, and a glamorous exterior are vital elements to maintain appeal. To survive in a fiercely competitive world, where thousands of other young, beautiful girls are ready to take her place, Hazel put herself into an endless race regarding her appearance. Desiring a complete transformation but tempted by promises of low-cost, all-inclusive beauty overhaul services abroad, she inadvertently pushed herself into a highly cruel medical trap. Through the lens of sociological analysis, Hazel E.'s case reflects an incredibly painful reality of the 21st century, the rise of the instant cosmetic industry. I assess that because of the pressures from the virtual glamour on social media, many people have closed their eyes and entrusted their bodies to facilities lacking medical ethics, ignoring all basic safety principles. The consequence Hazel had to bear was severe complications that directly threatened the natural structure of her face. The prolonged agonizing pain and the trauma of having to look at her deformed reflection in the mirror was a far too harsh punishment. However, what commands respect in Hazel E. is that she did not choose to hide. Right from her hospital bed in her weakest moment, she bravely publicized her dark corners and unhealed wounds to warn millions of young girls. Her action was a splash of cold water thrown straight at the illusions of cheap beauty enhancement. For audiences currently besieged by flashy cosmetic advertisements, Hazel's story is sincere advice. Never bring your body, the most sacred temple of every person, to gamble on transactions that have absolutely no guarantee of safety. Princess Shingle, a highly influential actress in Africa, was once famous under the title, "The Woman with the Smallest Waist on the Continent." In an era where social media worshipped hourglass figures exaggerated to surreal levels, she turned her body into an extreme work of art. To achieve a 46-centimeter, 18-inch waist, a boundary that challenges all human biological limits, she was willing to remove her ribs, which are the natural shields protecting internal organs. That was no longer a need for beautification, but it had become a deep psychological obsession with public attention. Let us analyze the tragedy of turning the body into a commercial tool. When cheers on the virtual network become a source of life, an artist can very easily lose connection with practical values. I feel a deep remorse to conclude that Princess Shingle voluntarily stripped away her right to live healthily just in exchange for the momentary awe of strangers. Intervening too deeply into the core structure of the body led to devastating chain reactions, completely weakening the functions of vital organs, forcing her to be tied for the rest of her life to medical devices supporting her survival. From a symbol of allure, she had to face days of struggling to fight for every breath. Her remorseful confessions on social media are a choking sob from deep within her soul. For parents, Princess Shingle's story carries an invaluable educational message. It reminds us of our responsibility in guiding the younger generation. Forcing the body to deform to serve toxic beauty standards is not transcendence, but the cruelest act of self-destruction a human being can do to themselves. Closing the video, hope the stories just shared have brought you a deeper and more empathetic perspective on the silent pains behind the stage lights. Perfection is sometimes a cruel illusion, and true beauty only shines when we know how to cherish and love our own original selves. Wishing you always a relaxing, joyful, and warm time with your loved ones. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell to continue accompanying our memory vault in our next meaningful videos. Goodbye and see you again.